Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TaRL Africa webinar on accelerating learning when schools resume. Thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome once again. I will take you very quickly through some technology logistics and give a quick introduction before we begin. My name is Devyani Parshad. I'm part of the Teaching at the Right Level Africa team and from Pratham Education Foundation in India. And I've had the pleasure with working with many of you over the past few years. So just a quick overview of technology today. As you all are aware, we are using the Zoom setup. At the bottom of your screen, depending on which device you are using, you should see an interpretation option. If you would like to hear English, please select English in the interpretation option. If you would like to hear French, please select French in the interpretation option. It's a small icon which looks like a globe, and it's called interpretation. If you're on a phone, you might see it in your menu as language interpretation. If you are fluent in both languages, both French and English, then you need not select any interpretation option and you can continue to hear the original audio. So thank you once again for joining us. If you have any questions on the interpretation option, please use the chat box to message all panelists and we will try to help you. In the chat box, you can message all panelists. You can message all panelists and all attendees if you would like to say something. Please use the chat box to submit your questions for the Q&A session, which will happen at the end of the webinar. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, please do type in the chat box as opposed to turning on your mic to try to say something, as that might disturb the discussions. So once again, thank you very much for being here. Why are we here today? We're here to discuss a topic that many of us have been thinking about. What's going to happen when schools reopen? In many countries, schools have already reopened. What are government systems doing to resume learning in the face of a pandemic? What have we learned from the past? What have we learned from innovations that can be applied today? And what are some of the ideas that we are thinking about to take learning further for our students as they come back to school? To discuss this topic, we have a very, very exciting set of panelists with us today. We have government representatives from Botswana, Zambia, and Cote d'Ivoire. And we also have partner organization representatives from Cote d'Ivoire, Zambia, and Botswana. So thank you once again for all panelists for joining us today. The session will be structured as follows. We will give you a quick introductory presentation. We will then move into a conversation with some of our friends from governments in these three countries, and then we will move into a conversation with some of our partners. At the end, we will save some time for audience question and answers. So hopefully that's clear. And without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Ashley Morel, to give us an introduction. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Devyani. So hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Morel. I'm a member of the Teaching at the Right Level Africa team and also part of JPEL Africa. And I'm very briefly going to go over what the Teaching at the Right Level approach is and talk to you a little bit about the work of the Teaching at the Right Level Africa team. So in our current context, if we can just go to the next slide. In our current context, we know that because of the coronavirus, many children have been out of school due to school closures. And in some countries, kids have been out of school for several months. And sadly, this is likely going to have meant a large learning loss occurring for lots of different children. And when schools resume, it's going to be difficult because children will need to accelerate through lots of different kinds of missed material. But we think catching up on the foundations may be an important first step in accelerating through the material. So if we go to the next slide, teaching at the right level, I think, could be one way of accelerating through foundational skills and getting children to acquire those basic critical foundational skills. So what is teaching at the right level? If we go to the next slide, we'll see that teaching at the right level does things quite differently from what you would see in an ordinary system. So teaching at the right level is focused on moving to a world where all children are learning. And that means doing things slightly different to what's done ordinarily. So often you will see in schooling systems or in the classroom, there is a goal of completing a grade level textbook. In teaching at the right level, it's around clearly articulated goals for basic reading and arithmetic. And the goal is really to ensure that all children get basic foundational skills. With training and mentoring, you would sometimes see sort of a resource person as a trainer, and they do a training, but then there's limited follow-up. With teaching at the right level, leaders of practice are created via learning by doing. So what does that mean? Often there is a cadre of government who actually conduct the methodology themselves in the classroom. They do practice classes for sort of 20 to 25 days. And what that means is that they're equipped with the skills they need to provide strong mentoring support to facilitators. It also means that they get the sort of taste of success of what it means to improve children's learning, and then can provide quality ongoing support to facilitators during the program. With grouping, in an ordinary classroom, you might see grade level grouping, but in teaching at the right level, children are grouped by learning level rather than by age or by grade, and are quickly moved through the different levels. In a classroom, you might see chalk and talk or textbook-driven activities. In teaching at the right level, there's a simple framework of daily activities that can be adapted for progress. And so there are a variety of activities which can be done in big groups, small groups, and individually. And finally, with assessment, often you would have pen and paper assessments that are done at the beginning and end of a phase. But with teaching at the right level, and this is really, I think, the backbone, is there's a one-on-one oral assessment, and that's used to drive action in the classroom. So it's used to start grouping and then to track progress and keep the whole system focused on improving children's learning outcomes. Next slide, please. So what does this look like in the classroom? So as I've mentioned, teaching at the right level was designed to get children in middle to upper primary to quickly catch up on foundational reading and math skills. And so in the classroom, this starts with a simple one-on-one assessment. You can see an example of the assessment in the corner there. It's got some letters, some words, a paragraph, and a story. This is an example of an assessment tool from Nigeria. There are similar assessment tools for maths and for other languages. Once the assessment is completed, children are then grouped by learning level as opposed to by age or by grade. And generally, teaching at the right level programs are focusing on children in grades 3 to grade 6. Once children are grouped, instructors then focus on level appropriate activities, and children learn in groups as well as individually. And then children are reassessed. And this is to track progress and make sure that children are reorganized so that they can accelerate as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. So as we know, teaching at the right level was pioneered by Pratham in India, and has been sort of refined and developed over time through a process of experimentation. So what you see on the slide here is the first 4 blocks, the blue and yellow blocks, are randomized evaluations that were conducted on teaching at the right level programs, conducted by JPAL affiliated professors. And the first 2 blue blocks, which were RCTs that were conducted, focused really on a proof of concept. If we assess children one-on-one and we group them by learning level and focus on foundational skills, do learning outcomes improve? And what those studies found was that learning outcomes did improve. However, there was an issue around reach and take-up. And so the next stage of research really focused on trying to identify a scalable model, a model that could work either with teachers in schools or could work with Pratham staff and volunteers spending time in schools with all of the children. And that was very effective at identifying scalable models. And what we've seen in the more recent period is applying those lessons to different African contexts and adapting as appropriate. So in 2016, the Ministry of General Education in Zambia launched Catch Up. The programs now would have been in 1,800 schools this year. And similarly, PEC launched in 2018 in Cote d'Ivoire, and the Borno state government piloted teaching at the right level in 2018 as well, and it continues to grow there. Next slide, please. So that was a brief overview of teaching at the right level as an approach, but we thought it would also be useful to talk a little bit about the Teaching at the Right Level Africa team. So the TaRL Africa team supports partners working to address the learning crisis in primary schools in Africa through the evidence-based Teaching at the Right Level approach. And what you can see there on the right-hand side is the different places in which we're working. And we have sort of three buckets of main activities. The first is we provide deep support to governments in Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Zambia to support Teaching at the Right Level programs. And often this is done in close collaboration with partners, such as with BVOB in Zambia. And in those places, we have country teams who are working closely with the government, and they provide ongoing support on all aspects of teaching at the right level. So this includes the classroom methodology and the learning activities, measurement, monitoring, and review, as well as mentoring and leaders of practice building. We also work with, we'll support a community of organizations working directly with government and or working just directly to support TaRL programming. So in some instances, this is tailored support to particular programs or partners, but it's also around providing platforms for lesson sharing and learning, as well as conducting training events and workshops. Finally, we want to sort of innovate, test, and share lessons. So we have quite an ambitious learning agenda for the next few years, which is around continually strengthening and refining the program and make sure that the program works in Africa. And so with that, I'd like to hand back over to Devyani, but thank you very, very much. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Ashley. And just a reminder for all of our guests today, we have interpretation available. So if you would like to select English or French as an option, you should be able to select through the interpretation button on your Zoom screen. If you have any questions, any technical questions, you can please message in the chat box to all panelists. Thank you very much. So I'd like to begin our discussion today on this very important topic with our government guests. And I'd like to begin by introducing our government partners from Zambia. So welcome Mrs. Sakala and Madam Faith. Mrs. Sakala is lead of standards and curriculum at Ministry of General Education in Zambia. She has over 35 years of experience working in education, including experience in curriculum review, teaching, and early childhood education. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mrs. Sakala. Faith is Senior Education Officer for Primary in-Service at the headquarters of Ministry of General Education and is the focal point for the Catch-Up Project. She has been involved in the development and growth of teaching at the right level in Zambia since its inception. At the ministry, Faith coordinates in-service activities at the national level for primary schools. Welcome, Faith. From Côte d'Ivoire, we have Mr. Raoul Kone. Raoul is the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Ministry of Education of Côte d'Ivoire. He is in charge of strategic planning at the national level in the education sector and institutional partnerships. I like to believe that Raoul is a true teaching at the right level champion, and thank you very much for being with us here today, Raoul. From Côte d'Ivoire, we also have Madame Madeleine. Madeleine has 28 years of experience in primary education in Côte d'Ivoire. She has worked as Programs and Training Officer at the Department of Education, has trained as a teacher, and was previously Programs and Training Officer at the Ministry of Education. In 2019, Madeleine took on the role of National Coordinator of the Teaching at the Right Level program in Côte d'Ivoire called PEC. Welcome, Madeleine. From Botswana, we have Madame Rapelang Bohatsu. Mabohatsu is the Chief Education Officer at the Ministry of Education in Botswana. She oversees pre- and primary education policies. Ms. Bohatsu is responsible for all programs, projects, and policies related to primary education in the country, and teaching at the right level falls under her portfolio of programs. Welcome, Mabohatsu. So without any further ado, I'd like to begin our conversation today. I would request all our panelists, if possible, to keep their videos on as we are discussing. And Kim, you can turn the screen sharing off if that's fine. So let's begin with Raoul. Raoul, do we have you? Are you on the screen? Great. You'll have to unmute. Thank you. So, Raul, the first question to you. So, what made you decide to adapt and implement a teaching at the right level program in your context?
Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Très heureux de participer à ces séminaires en ligne. Comment dire, nous on appelle PEC en Côte d'Ivoire, programme enseignement ciblé. Avec le PEC, nous avons regardé très sérieusement à voir comment on redémarre après près de 3 mois d'interruption pour les élèves, pour la plupart des élèves. Depuis le 16 mars, les classes sont fermées en Côte d'Ivoire. Et puis, c'est pas tout le monde n'a pas pu redémarrer cette année. De telle sorte que nous avons d'énormes défis. Nous avons fait des propositions de leçons en ligne, plateforme. La réalité, c'est que c'est 20% de la population ivoirienne qui peut accéder à une plateforme. Nous avons fait des leçons, comment dire, à la télévision. C'est pas tout le monde qui réellement a la télévision, notamment dans nos villages. Nous avons eu l'avantage de leçons organisées par TaRL Africa à la radio en Côte d'Ivoire et ça, c'est aussi porteur de bons espoirs. Mais au final, tout le monde n'a pas pu bénéficier de chacune de ces modalités. Ce qui fait qu'à la rentrée, nous allons avoir des classes avec des gens qui n'ont pas bénéficié, enfin, plusieurs modalités vont se présenter à nous. Alors, il apparaît que une solution comme TaRL, avec un premier diagnostic, la constitution de groupes de niveau, et puis ensuite des apprentissages ciblés sur les besoins réels identifiés, c'est quelque chose qui devrait être très efficace chez nous, pour nous, parce que nos publics ont vraiment des profils diversifiés, notamment par le fait qu'on a interrompu les cours et qu'on a offert des modalités qui ne sont pas identiquement accessibles à tout le monde. Alors, ici, TaRL nous aurait vraiment aidé si on avait eu des équipes un peu plus formées pour affronter l'ensemble. Cependant, au niveau avec notre direction de la pédagogie et de la formation continue, on a bien retenu qu'il nous faut une phase de renforcement. À la reprise, à la rentrée, il faut faire vraiment des groupes où on renforce. Nous tâchons d'amener, notamment en mathématiques et en français, peut-être même en anglais, à constituer des groupes de niveau pour les 8 premières semaines après la rentrée. Mais j'avoue que pour ma part, je pense qu'on va épuiser toutes les ressources qu'on peut tirer de Aïda et d'Adaye. Parce qu'il nous faut vraiment, comment dire, sensibiliser la plupart des enseignants aux approches d'enseignement ciblé. Voilà. Pour l'heure, c'est beaucoup d'espérance, mais surtout assez peu d'expérience. Voilà.
Thank you, Raul. Mrs. Sakala, maybe we can move to you next. And you can tell us a little bit about the history of catch-up in Zambia and what made you think about catch-up as an innovation that you would like to implement in your country context.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having us on in this discussion. For us from Zambia, I think the idea of, we are calling it catch-up. It started sometime, I think, around 2014, 2015, because as you've indicated, my directorate is responsible for ensuring compliance to standards and set targets. So from our analysis of public examinations around that time, we could see that our learners were not doing very well. So we did request our institutions to implement a catch-up program, especially at promotional levels, grade 5, grade 8, and grade 10, and in particular in English, mathematics, and science. So we gave them that instruction that they should implement a catch-up program so that learners who are behind could be able to move up to the expected levels with their colleagues and be able to move together. I'm not sure how, but I think JPAL did get to hear of the strategy we are trying to implement, and they visited us. I remember they came to my office and shared with us the model of teaching at the right level, which they're implementing in India and I think in Ghana. And after some discussions, we did agree that we are going to try out their model. And during those discussions, a number of cooperating partners came on board, VVOB, DFID, and UNICEF, and together we sat and agreed and started coming up with plans on how we are going to implement. And at that time, we had just implemented the revised curriculum. And in our revised curriculum, the focus was to ensure that we focus on literacy and numeracy at early grades so that we are able to bridge this gap of learner competencies where they're having challenges in achieving to the expected level. So we thought if we focused on literacy and numeracy at the early grades, we should be able to catch them early enough so that they're able to achieve well in their education provision. So when we had this discussion, the partners agreed to work with us, and we developed materials to use for the implementation of the catch-up program. And we agreed we are going to pilot in eastern and southern provinces. And the focus will be on the lower grades from grade 1 to grade 4, and we will work with the literacy and numeracy. And when we realized that this program will require a lot of training for teachers who will be participating in this pilot, we agreed that since there will be a lot of training of teachers, then the catch-up program should be led and coordinated by our sister department, the Teacher Education and Specialized Services. So though the idea was mooted in the Directorate of Standards and Curriculum, the implementing and coordinating directorate now has moved to Teacher Education and Specialized Services because of the extensive work that is required to ensure that there's capacity built in the teachers for them to be able to implement this activity. We've continued working together, but they are the lead in this program. So therefore, I think for most of the issues that need to be clarified, my colleague from Faith should be able to come in and provide the answers. I've constantly been updated on how they are moving, what is happening, and the results that are coming out from the implementing provinces and districts. So basically, I think that is the history of how we have entered into a system of implementing teaching at the right level, which we are calling catch-up.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Sakala. And we will hear soon after this from Faith on what we've learned so far. But before that, let me go to Mabuhatsu. Mabuhatsu, would you like to tell us a little bit about the genesis of TaRL in your context, and what made you decide as Botswana that an intervention like this would be useful to your context? To unmute.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us in this discussion. In Botswana, what made us actually decide on this program was that the international studies that were conducted were showing that our learners in Botswana are not competing, or they're not doing very well in comparison to other countries, especially in areas of mathematics and science. And also that there were about 3 levels behind. So like a standard 5 learner will be performing maybe at a standard 3 level instead. And also we had a 5-year strategy, the Education and Training Sector Strategic Plan, which is a 5-year plan from 2015 to 2020. It also revealed that our academic achievements were low and our learners were not doing very well, particularly in acquiring irreversible skills in numeracy and literacy. And therefore, when looking at that, we what we thought of was coming up with a remediation program. It is when we were doing this with the assistance of UNICEF that we came across Jan Lab that was having this program of teaching at the right level. So we came in contact with Jan Lab and agreed that we would have a piloted in some of our schools. And we started with one region and moved to, we have 10 educational regions, and then we moved to 3 other regions as we went along. And as we're implementing this, we realized that because of how it is done in the assessing of learners before they are being grouped, it helped to identify where the learners are in the level and then how then this could be done. So this is how we came about this, and then we've moved to, like I said, first we started with one region and we moved to 3 other regions. And we realized that our learners were moving, from one level of operation to another. They were gaining, another level in these operations that we are doing. And these, to us, these are the foundational skills that will help our learners. Actually, if we are looking at them acquiring skills in science and others and comprehension in language, they would need to have acquired these skills in numeracy and literacy at a lower level as the basics for us to lay. And that is where we were looking at. And that is why we engaged in this program. We then signed a memorandum of agreement of understanding with Jan Love for the provision of this piloting, so that after the evaluation, then we can consider where this could be rolled out to other regions, looking at the results. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mabuhatsu. And I know it's been a very, very interesting journey in Botswana so far. And many of us have had the pleasure of actually visiting and seeing the work in action. So maybe moving back to Zambia now with Faith. And Faith, maybe you can kick us off with this piece. What are the main things you've learned from your experience implementing teaching at the right level that you would want to share with others in this new scenario? So, what are some of those learnings that you think are important to share today?
Thank you very much, Devian. Some of the issues we've learned so far are issues to do with the same implementing staff, the teachers, that it becomes very important, especially in this scenario, that teachers are really re-equipped in delivering, especially that at the moment, you are well aware that schools are closed. So what we are trying to do at the moment with the VVOB team that is placed in all the districts in our 2 implementing provinces to manage, equip the teachers while schools are on recess, and see how best we are going to manage when the schools reopen. Why? Because one of the issues that Zambia is first with is that our schools are really in remote areas, and so internet issues, even issues of programs on radio or even TV is a challenge. Though at the moment we have programs that through Ministry of Education and Department of Dode, distance and open learning, we are running the programs to help schools or learners that are not attending schools yet to listen to radio programs and all. We still have asked VVOB through our teams in the various districts to be speaking to teachers through our groups. We've opened a WhatsApp group where we share what needs to be done when we resume our classes. That has really helped because then we know that our teachers will still be ready to handle lessons when schools resume. That's one experience. Somebody asked how we have managed to handle the challenge of implementing TaRL with so many challenges that are there. And my response to that is that we usually took time to speak to administrators in the implementing schools to be able to get the community come in to help with a feeding program, just in case the school where this implementing program is not under school feeding program, to manage to feed the children as they waited for their time to go into class. So ideally, team, that's how we've been managing to implement our program. And that's what we hope to see in this new scenario, especially when we open schools, because then we know that teachers are still being capacity built, even though schools are not there, so that when schools resume, the accelerated learning will definitely take root, because we are doing that to teachers. We are also doing it to capacity build the mentors as well, because for us, we use the senior teachers to mentor at school level, since they are the ones that are close by in the schools where this catch-up program is running. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. I think lots of interesting insights from Zambia, and it's been several years now in Zambia of the catch up program, and I'm sure people will have many more questions for you as well. But let's hear from Madeleine, also from Cote d'Ivoire. And Madeleine, the same question to you. What have been the key learnings from implementing PEC that you would want to share with others in this new scenario?
Merci, Deviani. Alors, en Côte d'Ivoire, je voudrais souligner que le PEC est venu à propos parce que des évaluations, des résultats de plusieurs évaluations nous avaient montré que nos enfants n'avaient pas les compétences de base au sortir des cours préparatoires. Et donc, voici une stratégie qui arrive et qui met tout le monde d'accord, tous les acteurs du système éducatif d'accord, et qui produit des résultats probants, visibles, et qui convainc tout le monde. Alors ici, ce que je peux relever, c'est d'abord l'enthousiasme des enseignants. Habituellement, ils sont quelque peu réticents quand ils sont face à une nouvelle approche pédagogique. Mais pour PEC, ils étaient complètement, je pourrais dire, ils sont tombés complètement amoureux de cette approche pédagogique. Et ce qui fait qu'ils ont facilement assimilé les stratégies ils ont pu mettre en pratique. Et au niveau des enfants également, de par mon expérience d'enseignante ou de pédagogue, je n'ai jamais vu des enfants aussi heureux dans une classe d'apprentissage. Ils sont complètement épanouis, ils sont ouverts à l'apprentissage et ils apprennent vraiment très bien. Je peux relever aussi le système de suivi et de mentorat qui est vraiment qui est un suivi qui est très pertinent et très efficace et qui amène les encadreurs pédagogiques à assurer leur fonction d'accompagnement auprès des enseignants. Et donc, nous sommes passés de la phase pilote l'année dernière à la phase d'extension avec un peu plus d'écoles cette année. Et les défis que nous avons relevés déjà pour cette phase, c'est d'abord l'appropriation véritable des rôles au niveau de chaque acteur, depuis la centrale jusque sur le terrain. Et donc, nous souhaitons que tous les acteurs au niveau de la chaîne d'encadrement puissent véritablement s'approprier leur rôle pour donner le meilleur d'eux-mêmes dans la mise en œuvre du PEC en Côte d'Ivoire. Un autre défi que nous avons, c'est l'implication des parents. Jusque-là, nous n'avons pas véritablement réussi ce challenge-là, mais nous ne sommes pas du tout déçus. Nous sommes, je vais dire, nous avons une expérience avec le TaRL juste de 2 ans, deux années scolaires. Et donc, nous sommes en train de travailler pour prendre cet aspect de l'implication des parents en compte pour que sur le terrain, nous soyons plus efficaces. Pour l'année prochaine, nous allons pratiquement passer du simple au triple par rapport aux écoles qui seront impliquées dans le PEC. Et donc, nos gros défis, c'est la planification des formations de ces différents acteurs-là. Et nous sommes à pied d'œuvre pour le faire. Et nous avons une équipe, je pense, solide. Tout à l'heure, le directeur du cabinet adjoint l'a dit, nous avons besoin de renforcer notre équipe de pilotage au niveau central. Et avec le soutien de l'équipe TaRL, qui est un soutien de tous les jours, qui nous accompagne tous les jours, nous allons tout mettre en œuvre pour relever tous ces défis-là pour le bonheur de nos enfants, des enfants de Côte d'Ivoire. Donc voici, Deviani, ce que je peux dire concernant l'expérience de la Côte d'Ivoire et les leçons que nous avons apprises. Merci.
Thank you, Madeleine. Mabuhatsu, can we come back to you again? Just to hear from you on, if you would like to reflect on any learnings and what the plans are going to be as you move forward with schools opening in Botswana. So what are you going to do differently? What needs to change when schools resume? And how do you envision teaching at the right level in the classroom may need to change given COVID health and safety guidelines?
Thank you. Um, Maybe I just need to indicate that with us, the schools are on. The schools have reopened, and most of the schools are running on a shifting mode. So to allow us to comply with the COVID-19 regulations of spacing and decongesting the classrooms. So that is where we are currently. And I think with TaRL, implementation of TaRL, it would also take a similar approach. But since learners are grouped, we may need to look at how we're going to be reducing the number of groups of learners in a group so that we allow for the spacing. We may also need to look at the fact that since the learners sit on the floor and do write and bring sticks and stones and do all those fun activities, then we need to make sure that our floors at the time for this, they are disinfected, and we really make sure that whatever we use for these activities, they are also, safe for the learners to use. But it may also be necessary that we think of other ways. If they have to sit on the floor, maybe we need to provide some mats, and we need to also maybe think of if there could be manila papers used and word charts prepared in advance, word cards prepared in advance, and the activities prepared in such a way that where they have to do it in that manner, then they have to be safe. But otherwise, we may also have to consider what online activities can be used, because once the schools were closed, we are still providing support to the learners in the form of lessons through radio, through TV, and in some cases we were giving them some work and uploading them allowing them to upload on the mobiles for the parents, and then they would use that at home as well. So this could be other avenues that we need to really consider on how we can do this, because in some cases we are aware that the connectivity in our schools, particularly in the remote areas, is not very good, despite the fact that in some cases we're providing through online and using the tablets that in some schools we do have. These are what we could also consider to provide for our learners. And we need also, I think, to provide more training to our teachers. Meanwhile, we're aware at the same time that it seems like there's a lot of pressure and the teachers are overwhelmed with how they are going to, cover up and do a lot of work within this time because of the lost time during, the time that the schools were closed. So it is also important that we should consider providing online training for our teachers so that they can be able to, to be equipped and can continue to do this. As much as there is shifting, it's not all schools that are shifting, so there could still be space in some of the classrooms. But those that are not even shifting, there is some space even that they could use even outside the classrooms, as some do that. So that can still be considered in addition to these online provisions that we, I have already mentioned that we need to look at. And I think parents also as much as we'll be, wanting to even, take advantage of the fact that most parents do have cell phones that we can ride on by providing the work in their mobiles, they also we need to take them on board in training them so that this can not only wait for school, but can also happen, the support can also be happening with TaRL at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabhat. That's very interesting to hear some of your ideas. And maybe Faith, you also want to share with us, how are you thinking about the future? Not just for teaching at the right level, but for basic foundational skills in the system, and what some of your plans in Zambia are.
We've had a lot of chatting with our cooperating partners in getting to see how best we would be able to handle the classes when we resume. How best can we accelerate their learning? And so many chats have been going on between a lot of our cooperating partners, UNICEF, USAID, VVOB, and UNESCO, World Vision, Zambia. We're trying to see exactly how best we'll do this, because seriously speaking, we have a challenge of interconnectivity. And yet our children, all ours, we can't say that we are just in urban areas. We also have children in rural areas who are all of them expected to sit for the same central examination at the end of the year. So we would want to have a leveled platform where we make sure that children would be able to learn. And our hope in our chatting and the strategies that we would want to put in place will help us as a country deal with such challenges in order for us to help our children learn. Remember, even in the first place, for us to adapt the catch-up program through the history that was shared by Madam Sakala, was because of the way we used to perform at lower grades. And so we would want to make sure that children do not remain at that level. How best would we do it? So our strategy for now is to make sure that teachers at all levels, because at the moment in the Zambia arrangement, the only classes that have resumed are those that are in examination classes. But we would want to make sure that even those that are in non-examination classes would be able to catch up as soon as schools resume. And our hope is that we can resume schools as early as next term. Then would be able, so that we manage to upscale the children. But that our target really is to make sure that teachers have this strategy. How do they manage the teaching at the right level to use it in order for our children to learn? That's why I thought I should have my comment there too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith. Raul and Madeline, maybe we can hear some thoughts from you on how you are thinking about moving forward now when schools open again in September, and what some of your thoughts are. Madeline, maybe you can begin, and if Raul is still here, yeah, go ahead.
Ok, merci. Alors, avec la pandémie, c'est vraiment beaucoup de défis que nous avons concernant la réouverture des classes. Mais nous avons, peut-être contrairement à d'autres pays, nous avons déjà eu une réouverture des classes après 2 mois de fermeture. Et donc déjà, nous avons pu mettre en œuvre quelques stratégies avec les mesures de distanciation dans les classes. Ce qu'on avait déjà donné comme consigne aux facilitateurs, aux enseignants, c'était de privilégier certaines activités dans la classe. Par exemple, les activités en groupe, les activités collectives et puis les activités individuelles. Voilà. Et donc, préparer les séances, les classes PEC, de sorte à vraiment privilégier ces deux stratégies d'organisation de la classe. Et pour le travail en groupe, parce que c'est ce qui cause véritablement problème, parce que c'est un des piliers du PEC, faire travailler les enfants en petits groupes, et c'est de faire en sorte qu'il y ait moins d'élèves, le moins d'élèves possible dans les groupes, les petits groupes de travail. Et pour la rentrée, et comme l'a dit la dame de Botswana tout à l'heure, il faut, au niveau de la formation des acteurs, prendre en compte ce volet-là de la nouvelle situation de la pandémie, avec toutes les mesures qui l'accompagnent, et donc faire en sorte que les enseignants soient formés à mettre en œuvre ces mesures de distanciation. Si on a mis sur pied un programme radiophonique, un apprentissage à distance qui est en cours, qui est diffusé, et c'est de faire en sorte que ce canal qui est la radio puisse être vraiment utilisé pour pouvoir atteindre les enfants dans leur apprentissage. Et je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, un de nos défis aussi, c'est l'implication des parents. Et donc, nous serons amenés à impliquer les parents parce que plus que jamais, leur apport est nécessaire dans le cadre du PEC. Et donc, les impliquer et les emmener à continuer les classes PEC à la maison, en dehors de l'école. Et donc, voilà, des mesures déjà sont prises par le gouvernement en ce qui concerne toutes les écoles pour réduire les effectifs dans les classes. Et ça, c'est déjà un acquis. Et pour les classes PEC, nous allons observer les mesures, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, renforcer le respect de ces mesures de distanciation-là et permettre à nos enfants de continuer d'apprendre dans des conditions sanitaires vraiment adéquates pour préserver leur santé. Et voici donc ce que je peux dire concernant la troisième question. Voici le dire Kabela.
Oui, je suis là. J'ai écouté avec beaucoup d'intérêt. Bon, mais en fait, quand je regarde la rentrée,
Hello?
alors,
Hello.
Yes, we'll have to
Can you hear me now?
reassign you as interpreter. Just a moment. Kim?
It's okay. Sylvain has come back.
Okay. Kim, can you do that, please? Can you assign Sylvain so that Raul can speak? Thank you. Yes, we can hear you. Raul, go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
merci beaucoup. En fait, en tant que gestionnaire, au niveau gestionnaire, la reprise, là, c'est vraiment un casse-tête de notre point de vue. nous sommes au plan national, nous sommes dans une phase ascendante en termes d'accès à l'éducation. Il y a de plus en plus d'élèves. Et qu'est-ce que ça va être à la rentrée? Est-ce qu'il y aura, on n'aura plus la libéralité de réduire les effectifs? Ça va être très, très énorme. Ça aussi, c'est un autre problème. Mais pour la qualité de l'apprentissage, effectivement, nous avons un défi avec que TaRL nous aiderait beaucoup à traiter. Des élèves, beaucoup d'élèves qui ont désappris parce qu'ils n'ont pas eu accès à l'école, à une éducation systématisée. Et ici, on sent vraiment que ça devrait être un moment très, très, très apprécié d'avoir des enseignants sensibilisés et maîtrisant un peu mieux toutes les touches de TaRL, ou de ce que nous appelons le PEC ici. Parce que ça sensibiliser les enseignants à une meilleure attention portée au niveau d'apprentissage des élèves. Et fatalement, ça devrait nous aider, surtout maintenant, surtout à la rentrée, je veux dire au mois de septembre. Parce que ici, on aura des groupes totalement distendus en termes de performance. L'amplitude va être très grande et il faut pouvoir les regrouper et puis répartir sur les apprentissages fondamentaux. Moi, personnellement, c'est le défi que je ressens pour cette rentrée, surtout quand je connais toutes les ressources, toute la richesse qu'on peut, je veux dire, toute l'efficacité qu'on pourrait atteindre avec TaRL. On l'a vu déjà dans nos écoles. Je l'ai vu en Zambie avec le ketchup, mais je l'ai vu aussi à travers nos enseignants ici. Tous ceux qui sont impliqués dans notre programme PEC sont tout à fait optimistes quant aux capacités d'apprentissage des élèves. Maintenant, donc, il nous reste le défi de pouvoir nous appuyer sur comment dire, cette évidence-là pour conduire des reprises efficaces. Voilà. En fait, je suis très, très inquiet. Voilà. Merci.
Thank you, Raul, and thank you to all our panelists for sharing their thoughts. There are lots of follow-up questions coming in, and I want us to be able to take some of those questions at the end. But before we do that, I'd like to hear some thoughts from our partners in the countries. And I'd like to invite Sabina and Yvonne to join us. Unfortunately, Lesaka is unable to join us as there is a conflict of time. But can I please invite Sabina and Yvonne to join us? And maybe just a quick introduction. Sabina is the country director for TREC, which is a Jacobs Foundation initiative in Cote d'Ivoire, and has been working there since 2006, managing complex programs involving multiple stakeholders in elections, human rights, and more recently, education. As country director for Jacobs, she manages the TREC program at the country level. So welcome, Sabina. I'd also like to welcome Yvonne Chamba. Yvonne is education specialist at USAID Zambia and has worked on the catch-up program since 2017 when scaling up the intervention in eastern and southern provinces. Yvonne has over 16 years of experience in development work in Zambia, mostly in education. Welcome, Yvonne. Thank you so much, both Sabina and Yvonne, for joining us today.
Thank
And
you.
I know your views and thoughts on this topic are very, very important for us as we think further. So, Yvonne, maybe we can start with you. You know, in this current scenario, with this compounding learning crisis potentially becoming worse with COVID, why do you think innovations like teaching at the right level are important? And what has this meant for foundational skills in some of the countries that you work?
Okay. I think I'll start by just highlighting what we focus on as USAID. And I think from 2011, our focus purely, I think, narrowed down to improving learner outcomes, particularly in the early grades. So as USAID Zambia, we've been supporting interventions that aim at improving reading skills of children, especially in the early grades. So when the history that Mrs. Sakala provided, I think for us was a natural fit in that when the catch-up or the TaRL intervention was introduced, it was a natural fit into our strategy and the kind of work that we do and we support the ministry to do. So we had been working with the ministry since 2011, and we've implemented a number of reading interventions in schools to work around the learning crisis that a lot of other colleagues have alluded to. So we saw catch up, I think, as an opportunity for us to really make a meaningful impact to ensure that children do not progress to higher grades without acquiring the critical skills that they need in order to actually succeed in their education journey and enjoy the education experience itself. Because you can imagine, I think for a child it's quite tormenting to be able to go to school and not able, you don't read, you don't understand what is being taught to you. It becomes a daunting, I think, experience for children. So that, I think, is the history of how we got engaged or involved in the catch-up activity. And we provided a $5 million grant to our colleague, to UNICEF and University of Cape Town and JPAL to support the current scale-up of catch-up in the two provinces. And what we have, I think, gotten from the field is that catch-up is actually making a difference. In our anecdotal discussions with school managers, provincial personnel, district personnel, I think that is something that consistently comes out to say we are beginning to see a difference and a change in the way, our children who've gone through this intervention are responding in the classroom. So, and from the teacher perspective as well, I think we are getting a lot of information on how they find it quite easy to adapt. And also the fact that it doesn't require, a lot of materials for them to be able to implement it and practice it in the classroom. And I must say that we've gone to places where we've actually seen that teachers are using this methodology for grades that are not the target grades. As long as they, identify children as needing help in those areas, they actually use the TaRL methodology to help those children. And according to them, it's really, really helping. At the end of the day, that is what we are looking for, I think, interventions that can get our children to read and enjoy the learning experience.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. And I see we have Leseka for a few more minutes. So Leseka, maybe you want to weigh in here as well. What has TaRL meant? Why do you think it's important? And what has this meant for foundational skills in the countries in which you work? How do you see this moving forward?
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. From Botswana's side, we've been working with Young Love together with the Minister of Basic Education. And the key issue really was, to look at some of the challenges that we have as a country in terms of the need to enhance foundational skills. We see continuously in the past 5 years or so, declining pass rates, especially at lower secondary and upper secondary. And this then, got us to really reflect, say, where is the cause of this? Could it be that, we're missing it at the core, in that learners are missing the basic literacy and numeracy skills? And on the basis of that, UNICEF partnered with Young Love and the Minister of Basic Education to really test teaching at the right level as a modality. And as Mabukata mentioned earlier, what we've enjoyed about it is really the flexibility in it. and also the ability for it really to identify with learners, as well as with different partners that are instrumental in learning. In the context of Botswana, you know that the work that we did with Young Love and the ministry was mainly led by Young Love facilitators. However, during testing, the ministry already started the discussion on the fact that, you know, if we were to consider sustainability and continuity of the program, we need to have it embedded in the school. We need to have an increased involvement of the teachers, and that remediation and support for learners by the teachers is core duty for the teacher. And we've seen even before the end of our testing stage, transitioning into using available resources, training of teachers, which I was part of, you know, having input and buy-in from regional officers as well as directors. And I must say, the level of commitment and the feedback that we've been getting from the schools, from the learners, from the parents have been really good. And as a country, the position that I believe the ministry is at the moment is to say, while we tested it for 30 days in standard 4 and 5, it is not sufficient for us in terms of what we need to do as a country. And the discussion that we continue to have and the ministry continues to have is, how do we make sure that you really have this way of supporting learners running throughout, and also being offered not only in 2 standards, but offered across all the standards. And this is where we continue to engage now at a technical level with the Young Love and the ministry, you know, to see how best we can advise on moving forward. Based on the work that we did with Young Love, UNICEF will be now supporting the Ministry of Basic Education in developing a comprehensive national remediation and enrichment program. And we're really looking at learning from the experiences that we had with Young Love, teaching at the right level, and other partners that are in the country that are also active on the remediation landscape, really to inform a program that nationally, you know, the government would have and would be in a position to provide to learners and benefit. So we have enjoyed really working, and we continue really to engage with government as UNICEF country office, as well as with Young Love on teaching at the right level. And we followed the discussions, and we continue, as I said, to engage with Young Love beyond, and know that during COVID-19, when schools had closed, you know, it was exciting to listen to the radio programs and immediately identifying with how this can be easily used by the caregiver at home, as Mabukati mentioned. You know, this can be used by the big brother at home, you know, to really help the young learner at home to continue. And we hope that, you know, funds permitting, these are some of the innovative ways in which, as we look at structuring pedagogical services in the country, we will continue to adapt. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leseka. And, you know, maybe carrying on from there, Sabina, your views on TaRL and foundational skills and Côte d'Ivoire in this current context.
Thank you so much, Deviani, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So maybe what I would like to, there is a lot that my predecessors have already said, so I'm not going to insist on why TaRL. But what I would like to recall and to share with you, and actually shed light on the particular value that we give to teaching at the right level, is that how did we came to work with teaching at the right level in Côte d'Ivoire. So when we started in 2016 as Jacobs Foundation to work with the Ministry of Education, we knew that we wanted to address the learning crisis, right? And then what we did not do was to just promote a model, right? So we didn't came and we said, look, we want to work with TaRL or with X and Y. What we did first was really to, we did a landscape, across the globe to see, how this learning crisis was being successfully addressed in other countries with similar challenges. And so we discussed and we presenting to the Minister of Education a sort of a menu. I remember we had pre-identified 11 potential solutions and models that could have fitted, once adapted, the context of Côte d'Ivoire. And so the Minister of Education decided, shortlisted 3 models, including teaching at the right level, to pilot them and then to compare them and to see what was the most promising in Côte d'Ivoire, thinking already at scale, right? And so we did these 3 different experiences, and after the pilot phase that has been evaluated by Innovation for Poverty Actions, TaRL happened to be the most successful, the most promising model after the pilot scale. So this is why, we're now focusing also as a funder on teaching at the right level. So why do we think that in general, regardless of this COVID situation, TaRL is important? So as I already said, we knew that it is an effective evidence-based solution, right? So we thought, let's try to bet on models like TaRL that we know if they are properly implemented, they work. We also know that TaRL is important because it addresses a widespread problem, which is the problem of low learning outcomes, that is recognized and prioritized as such by the Ministry of Education. This is very important, right? Because sometimes you have a great solutions, but actually you're not aligned with the ministry with regard to the priority of these solutions in light of the problems. We also feel that TaRL is important because it really acknowledges that children learn differently at different paces, always, right? And this is backed by neuroscience, this is a fact, and TaRL acknowledges this. And then TaRL allows for this adaptive teaching, monitoring child learning and adjusting the instruction according to the children's needs. So putting the child at the center, as I believe Yvonne was saying right before me, and also, which is very important, as she said, this playful approach, making learning not a traumatizing experience, especially when you're having challenges, but an enjoying one. So this is why we really believe that TaRL is important. Now, in the COVID context, as Madeleine from Côte d'Ivoire, the PEC coordinator, has already mentioned, TaRL has already been creative in, let's say, translating the usual tools and curriculums on radio programs. And so I'm sure that we will be continuing to be creative, right? To see how and what can we do more to be able, if this COVID situation persists, to adapt it further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabina. And maybe coming back to you, Yvonne, just picking up on some of the points that you told us. So what are some of the recommendations or advice that you have for others, who are thinking of working on foundational skills or, innovations like teaching at the right level in their contexts? And what is your strategy moving forward? Sorry, I'm seeing that Yvonne's audio is not connected. Yvonne, can you hear me? Oops. Okay. So Sabina, maybe I'll let you. Okay, there we go. Yvonne, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, somehow my connection went off.
No problem. So I was just coming to you with the, with the next question, taking us forward, saying, you have a lot of experience now, obviously, with teaching at the right level and programs focusing on building foundational skills. So what's your strategy moving forward, and what's some of the advice that you have for others thinking of these kind of initiatives in different parts of the world?
Okay, no, thank you very much. I think for us, as indicated in the beginning, we work closely with the Ministry of Education, and how we proceed is guided by what I think collectively the ministry and partners highlight as an important strategy or as a way for us to proceed. But I think from our work in the last 3 years, there are certain things that I think stand out as key elements that would probably should be taken into consideration going forward. Number one, I think for us, we've enjoyed magnificent leadership from the Ministry of Education. Mrs. Sakala and her team, the Teacher Education Department, have really run with this catch-up program. And that makes, I think, our partnership very, very strong. The second thing that I think we've seen is that when you go out, particularly to the field, you do realize that depending on the circumstances that specific regions have, whether it's larger enrollment, figures of children, infrastructure challenges, and all that, the way the TaRL methodology is delivered actually varies. So you do not have a one-size-fits-all kind of delivery mode for TaRL. You'll find different areas trying to work around to suit their circumstances. And I think that is the beauty of this methodology, but also I think something that can be useful for us as we, I think, respond to the crisis that we are going to have once we are on the, we resume schools. So, and I think apart from the ability to let TaRL evolve or adapt according to the environment, I think one of the other things that we must really, I think, try to do is to ensure that it's integrated in the normal school program. Because in some instances, I think we do hear from teachers who are actually delivering the methodology that it can be quite, I think, taxing, particularly if it's an after-school activity. It means it's additional, I think, work for them. So as much as possible, I think going forward is to think of how we ensure that this is integrated into the normal school program so that we manage the workload. And I think TaRL underscores a number of elements that any quality education program should have. And that is number one, consistent mentoring and coaching for teachers. Our teachers, I think, out there who are doing the TaRL methodology need this. They need a lot of support to be able to ensure that the integrity of the methodology itself is preserved for us to be able to reap the results that it's meant to help with. We have aspects such as ensuring that the learner remains our focal point, and therefore the issue of ensuring that we meet the learner where they really need the help, that is their area of need, is another important aspect. And I think as we look at the situation that we have right now, the COVID situation, most of us, I think, have been implementing TaRL in certain geographic regions. But I think we are presented with a situation where we may have to expand or to provide some kind of remedial accelerated learning to more children. It means, again, we have to work around ensuring that these key elements that are showing positive results for the TaRL methodology in our schools. And so this means, I think, more partners have to come on board to support such efforts. And it means a greater role for our ministries to actually ensure there's coordination and continued leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. I mean, I was writing down everything that you were saying because it's also helping us reflect on what are some of the key things, to keep thinking about as you think about focusing on foundational skills. Sabina, your thoughts?
Thank you, Devyani. So our strategy moving forward is, of course, continuing to work with the government of Cote d'Ivoire, with the Ministry of Education, really to manage to scale PEC sustainably as a remediation model for grade 3 to 6 in Cote d'Ivoire. but also explore adaptation of PEC to earlier grades, right? So to make sure that we just don't wait the moment when children need remediation, but we make sure that children are learning foundational skills at the right time. Now, to do this, we're also launching a pooled funding facility, right? It is obvious that only one donor cannot make it alone, the government cannot make it alone, right? So we're soon launching this pooled funding facility with the government of Côte d'Ivoire, Philanthropic Foundation, and the cocoa and chocolate industry in Côte d'Ivoire. And we're also inviting other donors to join. Now, I should say that, so we are looking at the future with a lot of excitement, but also with a very cold head, right? Because there is a fact that I remember I heard once from a knowledgeable person, experienced knowledgeable person, speaking about rates of success and failure of education or of social initiatives, education initiatives, health initiatives. So statistics shows that just about 5% of pilots, of projects, manage to go to scale, right? And this doesn't mean that the remaining 95% were bad ideas or, you know, ill-suited initiatives, but it means that going to scale is everything but an easy process, right? So in Côte d'Ivoire, and I believe also our colleagues in Botswana we are benefiting from a very interesting experience, which is the real-time scaling lab. The real-time scaling lab, it's a participatory research action initiative launched by the Center for Universal Education at Brookings. And it's basically a learning by doing experience, let's say learning and reflecting while we're doing scaling, while we're engaged in the scaling process, right? And so we are, let's say, comforted, you know, by the fact that we know that we have also an external eye looking really at the whole ecosystem and trying to distill insights, learnings, challenges while we are engaged in this process. And I take this opportunity to do some marketing. So, you know, I was reading this again yesterday. So they recently published a briefing, a policy briefing, which is basically capturing the findings from 5 different labs around the world, including Botswana, by the way, with the real-time, with the teaching at the right level. So countries that are engaged in a scaling process. And there are really interesting initial insights, right? That says that, you know, like Madeleine was saying before, teachers are falling in love with teaching at the right level. But actually, a good learning from the real-time scaling lab is that we should rather fall in love with the problem, not with the solution. What does it mean? It means that, you know, while we're scaling, we still need to be open to adaptation, right? Because we're continuously learning what are the challenges. And so we cannot say, this is TaRL, how it works in India or Botswana, and we just replicate in Côte d'Ivoire. No, we need to constantly be adapting. We also need to move from a project mentality to a systems approach, right? So it's not simply mathematics, right? That now we are moving from 200 schools in Côte d'Ivoire and we just double the experience to reach 18,000 schools. No, it doesn't go like this, right? We also need to understand, you know, how do we make sure, I believe that, well, somebody just before was saying, you know, how do we make sure that the model is really institutionalized within the system? How do we make sure also that we manage potential oppositions? You know, we are in the nitty-gritty of these initiatives, but maybe not all the teachers in remote areas, in remote schools, have all the information, to share the excitement that we have, right? So we need to make sure to be, to involve all the relevant stakeholders, to give them also the floor to express, their concern, and to take into consideration all of this. And then finally, another interesting also insights was about, really strengthening this system adaptive capacity. I think we pretty trust TaRL Africa to be capable to be adaptive, but it's very difficult. So to have this mindset also of saying, look, we do trials and errors, right? And the scaling is an iterative process where it's going to be a constant, well, maybe not until the end, but at least in a halfway, a trial and error. Now, having the Ministry of Education also understanding this, right? And accepting that adjusting, it's not a failure, it's part of the scaling process. I know that we have Raoul Kone, Madeleine, they do understand this because they're champions, but we need to have the whole system understanding and buying into this. Voila. So I just wanted to share with you, these few insights from these very interesting reports to let you know that while we're excited, we also try to remain very cold-headed because the scaling challenge is a challenge, is really a true one. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabina. And I know we have many more questions from the audience. I don't know if any of our panelists would like to come back on to answer some of those. I think we tried very much to take your questions into the comments as we were continuing. So thank you very much, I think, for joining us today. As I was saying, I have learned, been writing down a lot of the things that I've been hearing from our partners in the government, from our partners in the organizations who are supporting this effort. And it's very interesting to see the different kinds of thoughts that people have. So hopefully you were able to hear more in detail about these initiatives and how they could be useful in your context. We will try to answer some more questions over email, and we will share, of course, the recording with all of you if you would like to share with some of your members. And I'd just like to conclude, actually, if Faith, you are still around, I'd like to bring you back on to answer one question, which I think is very important, which was, how do children feel about teaching at the right level? I mean, because the reason we are all here is because we want children to learn. The reason education systems are doing this is because they want children to learn and they want children to progress. So Faith, would you like to share anything with us on your thoughts on how children and teachers respond to this approach, and maybe some closing words?
Yes, Devian, the experience, I'm sure you must be aware that at some point, a team from TaRL Africa came and took a video of Southern Province and how that the teacher explained on how beneficial the program has been, not only to teachers, but even to children. More so the parents, actually, because parents have really seen the progress that their children have made in their improved reading and even calculations. And as such, as Zambia, we are no longer even calling it a project. It's now a program. If you read on my question and answer, I've even said that I would want that all grades, not just the 3, 4, and 5, but all other grades use the same strategy in order for us to manage to get into all other schools, so that our learners, as those that are already indicating the benefits that they've gotten through this strategy, because this strategy makes a teacher deal with a child according to their need. And so it becomes easier for a child to want to attend a lesson even next time, because now they've seen the need of getting into school. So for me, I would still say that for all the stakeholders, we are talking about the parents, we talk about the community, we talk about the teachers, we talk about the children themselves, that this strategy has really benefited all. Even for us as the Ministry of Education at HQ, it's easier for us to even get to plan for what other in-service programs would be introduced, so that we improve our learning outcomes. For me, that I would say is the biggest uh, benefit we have learned through the implementation of teaching at the right level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith. And I know we are 5 minutes over time, so thank you very much for everyone for staying on. And I know we have been hearing lots of interesting ideas from all of our government partners today, and we would love to continue this conversation. I see Mabuhatsu also just put in a comment that this way of teaching should really be thought about across grades and not be restricted to certain grades. And I think these kinds of lessons and ideas are very, very important now in this new context. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our panelists, Madam Bogatsu, Madam Faith, Mrs. Sakala, Mr. Kone, Madam Madeleine, Sabina, Yvonne, Leseka. Thank you so much to everyone for being with us today. And I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I most definitely did. And we will be in touch and look forward to connecting with all of you again very, very soon. Thank you. Thank you very much.